I just got back from my holiday in Australia. We went for 2.5 months. The reason why we went for such a long time was because I hadn't been able to go back to Australia for 3 years because of COVID restrictions and stuff, because of Japan and everything. This past year I was able to go last Christmas holidays and it was fantastic. We stayed for 2.5 months. I caught up with family and everything. And it was interesting because I took a break from drawing. I was still working technically. I launched a course as well. During that time, I launched my art business course. If you're interested in that, I'll link it down below. During that time, I was very intentional with taking time off from client work, from studio work, from like any drawing, basically. I wasn't even doing one-on-one mentoring, so it's probably the longest amount of time that I haven't like drawn in my entire career. The longest that I haven't drawn has been 1 month, and that was due to having an injury with my drawing hand, so it was like I didn't really have a choice. And because I had also set up everything with my business to be able to take this break, I was okay. It's interesting thinking about my trip to Australia. We got back about 2 weeks ago. The last 2 weeks I've just been settling in back home here and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, basically. While we were in Australia, I didn't really have time for myself to be able to sit down, think about my art, think about my business, think about what I want to achieve with my art this year and moving forward for the next couple of years, because yeah, I have big things that I really want to achieve. So that's why I thought I'd make a video on this, because I want to talk about how you can get back into art after you've had a long break. I think it's a very common thing for a lot of us where we've taken a bit of time off, and it might not have been as long as I did just this round, like 2.5 months. That's quite a decent amount of time. But if you're an artist where you've just taken quite a bit of a decent break and it feels a little bit intimidating, I've got some tips that I want to share with you, and hopefully it will help you, because I went through those feelings just recently. Like last week I was just getting back into work, drawing on the page. It was, part of me was also thinking like, man, can I even draw? Have I still got this? Can I still do this as an artist? But it was okay. I managed to get back into the flow of things, and it felt like a muscle being reactivated again. Similar to like when you're like riding a bike, like if you've known how to ride a bike since you were little and then you jump back on it again as an adult, you've already kind of got the hang of it. It's very similar to that. It's like a muscle memory thing that's been reactivated again. So that's what I found, what it's been like with drawing for me. And luckily, I mean, this kind of break, it wasn't too long. If you take like a year off or something, then of course that it's going to take even longer to get back into it, like, and to remember certain things, because the longer the break, the harder it is to get back into it. Once you're in motion, it's easier to stay in motion than to like stop and then restart. Something to just remember. So here are some tips I've written down that I've been doing this past week, because I'm just getting back into work now, of how to get back into art after you've taken a break. My first tip to be able to get back into art is, number one, master studies. Master studies, I know everybody in the like art community talks about it, but I think what's important is that you start with master studies that you actually enjoy. Don't just do master studies of what everybody else is doing, or the ones that say like you have to paint Sargent and stuff. Like, you don't have to do that. Start with doing studies of the artists that you love most. That's the thing that I highly encourage, and the ones that make it feel fun to paint again. My two favorites to do master studies of is, number one, Edgar Payne, amazing artist. His work is just very beautiful, and it's like the colors and everything, and I find it's very approachable to dive into studying his work when you're trying to get back into art, because you can see each brush stroke. He uses very broad brush strokes, so it's a little bit easier to decipher how to actually like make a study of it. He's been one of my favorites since the very beginning of my career to study. The other one that I really love study is Ghibli backgrounds. They're a lot more intense though, of course, but I always start with a more simpler Ghibli background study. Like, I would do like a desert or the more forest type. Like, I try to avoid cityscapes and everything. Like, you start with the simpler backgrounds and work your way to the more complex ones when you're studying them. Instead of trying to come up with something from imagination or from like, you know, your own idea, if you're feeling very intimidated by looking at the white canvas, start with a master study because it warms up your muscles, it exercises your eyes again. Because, you know, what I realized when I came back after 2.5 months in Australia was like, when I was looking at the painting that I was studying, I was like, oh, I need to kind of remember how to see again. Because half of the thing with art that I feel like it's not talked about enough is that half of the work is seeing. The more you see, the more you can draw. The only way that we can kind of see more, which is an interesting like paradox, I guess, is when we draw or paint. So the more we paint and draw, the more we see. I find with every master study that I've done, even if it's like one that I've already done, I always learn something new. There's always something where I'm like, oh, that's how they put the color down. Oh, this one has a lot better brush economy to it, you know? So every single study you're doing, you're always learning something new. My second tip when you're trying to get back into art after taking a break for a while is to start with a small project. And this is what I would do after you've done a couple of master studies, because, you know, this is after you've warmed up the muscles again. I don't recommend doing this straight off the bat. Rather than diving into like a really big project, like don't do a 365 project like after you've taken a break. That's like, I mean, if you want to, go for it, but like when I was trying to get back into it and I thought like, what kind of projects could I do? The idea of doing a 365 project just sounds like stupid. It sounds like it's setting myself up for failure. If I try it, I'll end up, you know, feeling too intimidated and I don't want to do it. So instead, we're thinking about starting with a small project. What kind of small project are we talking about though? A small project is something that is very achievable, and it's achievable in maybe like about 1 month or in 2 weeks. It could be 3 pieces of fan art, it could be 3 environment sketches, it can be 3 color studies, it can be 3 environment paintings, it can be 3 character designs, it can be 3 redesigns, like 3. Like it's a very small achievable number, and it's almost like a set that you've got. So you're also making a collection at the same time. Like don't do something like Inktober, like after you've taken a big break. Like don't jump into like a super intense large scale project. Start with something small first. Once you achieve that small project and you complete it, that's when you can go, okay, let's make this slightly bigger. Go for 5 pieces after that. Then go up, once you've completed that, go for 7, go for 10. And then you get the idea after that. And my last piece of advice when you're trying to get back into art after you've taken a break is just get inspired by creating a mess. Because I feel like I was a little bit critical of myself when I was getting back into my work after taking a break for so long. Because I felt like the stuff that I was drawing right before I went on holiday, like I was working, my work schedule before I left for Australia was like intense. I was working right up to the day until we left. It was a lot. And I was drawing. I was on such a good momentum with my drawing. That coming to a little bit of a stop, it's a little bit discouraging when you try and get back into it because you're not working at the same speed as you were before you took your break, right? So what I did to create a mess, basically, let's just call this creating a mess, is I set a timer for 1 hour, and I also made another timer that would go off at 30 minutes, so it's like the halfway point, and I would just draw. I would start with sketches, very messy sketches, and I'm going to show you a couple of them now, just to warm up, get back into feeling my momentum, my process, my creative process again, just getting familiar with that space and trying to get back into that zone, because when you're familiar with that zone, it's easier to tap into it. Because the thing is, when you're working as an artist as well, unlike, I don't know, a lot of artists where they might have the liberty to be able to rely on when inspiration strikes them and then they create a painting. If you're working, you don't have a choice. When you have a job to do and they say, we need 5 concepts by tomorrow, you have to activate that zone straight away. You can't be like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't hand in the client job because I'm not feeling inspired today. No, you can't do that. You have to get the job done. The way to do that is you have to know how to activate that switch that gets you into the creative zone. After taking a break, that little switch can be a little bit hard to reactivate again. So that's why doing it this way, setting a timer like this, that's what I found personally was the thing that helps me to practice getting back into that creative zone. So one of the small projects actually that I just decided to start doing, I feel like I haven't also drawn for myself for a while, because last year was a lot of client work and I wanted to create something for myself this year. 3 pieces, and they are going to be interior pieces of my apartments in Japan. It's going to kind of show a glimpse of what it's like living in Japan as well. I want to kind of show what it looks like, and I want to paint it because each of those spaces that I'm drawing are places that I lived in, and I want to be able to tell the story within the apartment. So it's been really fun. I'll show you some glimpses of it here now. I'm just starting on the line drawings first, and you can kind of see I'm being very loose with a lot of it. Like, I'm trying to not be too critical of myself, especially after you've taken such a long break. Like I feel like we need to calm down. It's going to take maybe at least a week for you to get back into that momentum, that movement that you had, like when you were drawing at your full capacity, at your full potential. So don't be too hard on yourself now if that's where you are at as well. So those are what I recommend doing if you've taken a break from art and you need to jump back into it and you're feeling a little bit lost with how to do it. Those are the top 3 things that I highly recommend you do. If you're looking for more inspiration, I'm going to link a couple of videos down below for you to have a look at. If you're wanting to learn something new as well, I've got a couple of free masterclasses as well you can go check out. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.